What's your, oh, rock bottom has a basement story? And how did you recover? Hey folks, just to let you know that in this video, there's going to be quite a bit of talk about people going through some pretty heavy trauma and a decent bit of discussion about self-termination and ideation of that. And so if you do struggle with any of those topics, if it might be a little bit heavy for you, either go into this video mentally prepared that that's going to come up, or maybe you just might want to skip this one. Story 1. After my stepdad passed away, I didn't really see my mom for 3 out of the 4 years I was in high school. 2 years I lived with her. She would take off for weeks sometimes with no warning, and the other 2 I got passed to various families. When I was 19, I was supposed to finally move back with her when, at the last minute, she sent me to live with an aunt. The aunt's husband just opened a bakery, so I worked in the bakery as a cashier, stocking the front dishes, making the coffee, cleaning the front entirely, and frosting the donuts. He did nothing except bake. I worked 70 hours a week from 3 a.m. to as late as 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and worked Blockbuster 2 of those days until 10:30 p.m. I was sleeping 3 hours or less most nights, and he would pay me approximately $1 per hour as payment for me living with them. I slept on their couch and had only a week or 2 worth of clothes with me. Eventually, my body started not being able to keep up the pace, and in the 3rd month, when I pointed out the sink was leaking, he asked me why everything broke around me and why I was so useless. I responded with, "I don't know, maybe it's the same reason you're an a-hole." So I got kicked out and took months to recover because I was anemic and seriously exhausted. I ended up living with a friend, but didn't make a lot, so I was living off of noodles, water, and rice for months. At that time, I started dating a guy who ended up abusing me, and when I finally got the courage to break it off, he stalked me at work. The cherry on top was my dad, who had been estranged from since he walked out when I was 7, and I started trying to build a relationship again, and he emailed me that I wasn't even his, and I was the reason that my parents divorced. I did move back with my mom after that, and our relationship fell apart at the news that I knew about my dad because she thought I should hate her, and I didn't. She would pick fights so bad I would get bouts of IBS and have to miss work because I would vomit for 6 hours so violently I would pull muscles in my back, abdomen, and neck. At that point, I worked full-time and paid $600 in rent to my mom for a 10-by-10 room with no privacy whatsoever. I never had a substance abuse issue, but they would barge in without knocking just because they could. I wanted to throw myself in front of the train every day of the week home from work so I wouldn't have to go back. Eventually, I had friends who knew I was doing bad and it was getting scary and offered to let me move in with them. I cried and said yes. They helped me get my license and my first car. My mom and I since have mended our relationship after years of talking about it, and she finally understands more about my depression. My aunt divorced her a-hole baker husband. The bakery failed because he was lazy and didn't have people skills. I'm doing much better now and have a much stronger support system. I just started therapy. I even have a boyfriend who I've been with for 7 years who stuck by me while I worked through my trauma and issues with my past abuse. I still have a rough time, but I'm glad I'm still here. I'm glad that this person is still here too, and that they would share this story, because it does go to show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel most of the time. You know, folks, I can't promise that everything will be great in months or years, but sometimes you got to keep going, because crappy people like that in your life, you can get away from them. God, that uncle, $1 per hour in exchange for, like, the rent of the house. Like, genuinely consider that. If she had only been getting paid $5 an hour, working 70 hours a week, that's $350 if there's not even overtime, which is, look, the math is like he's charging her over $1,000 for renting a couch to sleep on or something. That's absurd. So I am sorry for everything that this person went through, and for any of you who might be going through something similar. But as this person pointed out, friends can be there to help. Other people can be there to help. It can be tough, but if you keep going, things can get better, and it's worth it. Story 2. Was sick of my job, and one of the few redeeming features, my closest work colleague who worked for me in a team of 2 left for entirely unrelated reasons to me. We're still friends. After a long time just feeling very alone, I split up with my long-term ex who owned the house we both paid for. Moved into the only flat I could afford in a quiet street where nobody would really know if I was coming and going or not. Literal assets to my name at that point, a car, a handful of personal possessions. Took out a loan to buy the most basic furniture, appliances, kept everything extremely basic, hoping to move on ASAP. I am an absolute introvert, no friends. I perform the bare minimum for family to stop them moaning, but otherwise I keep away from them all. Can easily go a year without seeing anyone outside of work. Don't even know the neighbors' names. But they complained several times when I first moved in about all kinds of petty nonsense. Turned out that after the bills and things, I had a pittance of money each month to do anything with and nothing approaching a luxury. Minimal shopping for food, clothes, etc. for months on end. I kept the new address from everyone for as long as possible, even my employer deliberately. I figured it would take several weeks for anyone to find me, and if it did it at the right time of year, it would only be my employer who noticed I wasn't there first, and then try to trace back, which would be tricky without police help. Started writing something to explain it all, and at the bottom of the page, I had a set of boxes for all the people I wanted to say something to. After a few months of trying to finish it, there was still nothing in any of the boxes. It was a small list of names of people who might notice and be sad, but nothing in particular to say to them. Deliberately started spending time with those people in case it was the last, and even found myself leaving them on. Not quite a speech, but saying something they'd be likely to remember if they didn't see me again afterwards, but worded so it wasn't seeming unusual at the time, which worked, by the way. Nobody has ever suspected. A year later, still there. Not quite as rock bottom as I was then, but not much better. Made a set of deadlines for, if it's not improved by then, for when I'd finish paying certain things off, having some spare money, etc. Had a couple of little free or really cheap holidays with some of the people on the list. Again, always thinking, in case that's the last time, because I don't see those people that often. Story 3. My husband lost his job and his insurance. I kid you not, the very next day he broke a rib and had to go to the ER because he didn't know what had happened. Apparently you can break your rib by sneezing really hard. 2 days later, I had to go to the ER for a kidney stone. The ER thought I was drug-seeking because we had just been there with my husband, even though we refused pain medication because he didn't want it. So they sent me home. Of course, this wasn't free, and they were really mean about it while I was trying to take severe pain like a champ and not cry because no one believed me. The next day, I had thrown up so much from the pain that it damaged my esophagus and started throwing up blood. My throat felt like it was on fire, and I couldn't breathe properly. We Googled it, and every website said, "Get your butt to the ER." So we went back. I won't go into that experience, but we basically had to beg the ER staff to see me after I had laid on the floor outside of triage in and out of consciousness for 6 hours. After they finally told me what had happened, they sent me home. I was still puking blood and in horrible pain from the kidney stone. It didn't get better. I didn't want to go back to the hospital after they had failed to help me twice in the same week, so I went to the urgent care instead. They said they weren't equipped to deal with my problem, but I told them what the hospital had done and begged them to try. They gave me an IV, pain medication, anti-nausea medication, and a couple of other things, and effing finally, I was able to go home and recover. And then the hospital bills started coming. The hospital didn't do jack crap to help my problem, but 5 years later, I am still paying for it. I can't remember how much it cost because it came as a series of separate bills, but probably as much as our house. I get so mad about, hospitals and medical places like this, where them kicking this woman out because they're like, oh, they're just after drugs. They exacerbated this problem, didn't help this person out at all, and then billed her an obscene amount of money. And they weren't even the ones to fix, to help heal her in the end. I feel like she should be able to go to court and be like, yeah, they turned me away, didn't fix the problem, and charged me an absurd amount of money. Other people had to fix me. Here's the proof. I don't owe them anything because they screwed up. Oh my gosh. And boy, oh boy, if you can't tell that this person is almost 1000% in the U.S. healthcare system, then I envy you. Story 4. Caught my abusive drug addict boyfriend cheating on me a few nights before we were supposed to move into a new apartment. He raged and chucked me out of both apartments. I stayed with friends and at shelters while working 3 jobs to get back on my feet. Had a hard time finding housing, was struggling with PTSD because not only did he turn on me, the entire community I had built and the time I was with him did too, even my own friends. Women were coming to me for months afterwards with confessions. I was also trying to stay sober during this time, had nobody, was estranged from my family, wanted to die. Eventually found housing with one of my remaining friends, adopted a cat, and worked really hard to replace all my furniture. The apartment was crap, but it was the first place I had felt safe in years. Fast forward 2 years, I'm still working a lot, but live in a nicer place now. I have better friends and don't suffer with PTSD so much. My ex's actions still haunt me, but I'm a lot stronger and trust myself and my instincts more now. And I'm still sober. Story 5. I was homeless at age 18. I went to a homeless shelter despite warnings from some shady-looking guy. I got treated like crap, made fun of and belittled, and had my backpack with all my important documents stolen. All this was by the shelter staff, the people who are supposed to help. I still don't donate to any homeless shelters. You don't know what they're really like until they're your last hope. After that, I sold my cell phone, bought a tent, and found a backpack and a garbage can that reeked like cat pee but was otherwise clean, and did my best not to starve while going from place to place. My tent got stolen eventually, but luckily nobody took the backpack. I also got a revolver at one point. I recovered by getting unbelievably lucky and having my uncle find me and take me in and even give me one of his old properties in exchange for fixing it up really nice so he can sell it when he retires. If it wasn't for that, I would have killed myself after the first snowfall. I was even saving a bullet for it. Folks, I would always encourage you that if you're in a situation like this where you just feel completely alone and you're struggling, if you have anyone you can trust, some kind of family member or friend, I know that you think that it's inconvenient and you would be a burden on them for going to them for help. They will not see it that way. There is going to be someone who wants to help you, and it's a good thing to get help. People can help. That is okay. And you know what? If you really feel like you owe them something for that help, guess how you're going to be able to pay them back? By getting better and then living a happier life, and then you can be there for them or someone else too. Like, getting help is okay. So if you're struggling, please reach out to someone you trust. Story 6. I can't get too deep because I'm on mobile, but basically, my older brother passed away shortly after I found out I was cheated on by my girlfriend, all while I was homeless and slowly losing the use of my left leg due to illness. Then I got the news that my innocent autistic little brother got cancer. He's been in remission for a while now. The current biggest worry is about Batman or something. Story 7. Tried to kill myself, got caught at the right time by Mom. Mom breaks down, tells me it's all my fault and I'm shaming the family name by taking the easy way out. Ended up staying at the hospital longer than necessary because Mom needs an excuse. Start planning elaborate ways to kill myself and make it look like an accident or from a disease, a death that won't shame my family. I caught a bad case of tuberculosis, laying in bed, getting a deliriously good idea. Start throwing up whatever I eat or drink, take meds on an empty stomach, take extra pills or take no meds. Having a weak stomach, now I'm coughing up fresh blood in the bathroom or wherever. I hide them away, say I'm taking my meds, no one figures out, go to bed one night, wakes up in the hospital. I'm too weak to speak. I can't make much sense, but I feel somehow disappointed. See my best friend beside my bed. She's crying her eyes out. Sees me, still crying, says she knows I'll survive battling this disease. Says she wouldn't know what to do if I died. Continues to say many things that I have forgotten about. I feel like I betrayed her. I'm crying with her. Long story short, I crawled out of that basement thanks to my best friend. Story 8. I quit smoking cigarettes, weed, and taking oxy pills at the same time, cold turkey and with no help. My mental health deteriorated pretty fast. I felt like I really lost my mind for good. Took me a year to recover and feel relatively normal again. Every month that goes by from then, I feel better and better. Time was needed, I guess, for my brain's chemistry to balance. Story 9. So I got 3 misdemeanors and became homeless. Figured that was rock bottom. Had an upswing, got married, only to go to a festival and acquire drug-resistant skin mites. Took several years to get rid of them. They also left me with a residual skin condition that seems permanent. The doctors don't understand and can't treat. You don't really recover from stuff like that. What I did do was learn to compartmentalize my feelings, learn a ton of self-discipline, and become a way stronger person. Now I'm a fully fledged adult with a skin condition who's recently picked up painting again, has started writing, and is learning coding. I'll never say that having to go through something as traumatic as that is a good thing, because it made you a stronger person, but I wish you didn't have to be a stronger person. I wish people didn't have to go through that stuff. But do just know, folks, if you're going through tough things like this, then one of the best things that you can do is just take that and be like, well, this sucks, and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm not going to let this crap happen again. I've been through crap in my life like that too, and it's not fun to go through. People shouldn't have to go through it, but if you are dealing with it, it can get better. And hey, you could be like this person and pick up painting again, which I think is amazing. Story 10. It's pretty stupid compared to the rest, but when I was in middle school, I really struggled with my self-image/worth. I was majorly depressed, and my escape was playing Call of Duty. I ended up befriending a kid who was in high school, and he protected me from all the older guys who'd call me a squeaker. Then one night, my Xbox friend told me that he was going to get rid of his Xbox because it cost his family too much. I cried for a good hour because he was practically the only good thing I had going for me. I went to my parents upset and told them that I was struggling and was depressed and got told, stop being a bee. This is where I found the door to the rock bottom's basement. I went back upstairs and was ready to kill myself. Drastic for a young kid, I know, but decided to check Xbox one last time to see if my friend was on. Luckily, he was. I logged in and he told me he's going to get a job so he can pay for the Xbox Live subscription and we can keep playing. So yeah, thanks, Dylan Swag Forever. You kinda saved my life by working at Chick-fil-A. Story 11. Went to my drug dealer's house to score some H. He lived in the basement of his grandma's place. Her entire place was decorated in pure white frilly pillows with Jesus faces on them. I hadn't crapped in 3 days, and while we were waiting for this guy to arrive, we smoked a cigarette, which loosened up my bowels nicely. I took a poo in his grandma's bathroom, and in my borderline withdrawal stupor, I didn't realize that the toilet hadn't flushed completely. Flash forward a half hour to when the dope arrives, and we both get higher than God's left nut. I always smoked my H off tinfoil, and it always made me puke. So I stumbled my way back up to the Lutheran toilet and yacked my brains out. I go to flush, and it's clogged, but I'm gorked to high heaven, so I figure if I just flush again, it'll go down, right? No, not right. Anyway, I flushed 3 extra times, and then it all came right back up. So he hears what's happening and comes running up to see what's wrong while I'm standing on the edge of the tub while everything that had been in my stomach for the last 3 days comes raging up out of the toilet. He starts screaming that he's going to kill me, and I'm pulling a bunch of white lacy towels off Grandma's bathroom wall. In the end, I used 6 or 7 towels, all with angels or Jesus' face on them, to soak up my mess. I didn't quit using drugs for another couple of months, but I never saw the aforementioned drug dealer again. It was definitely the lowest point of my life. You know, it's been a long time on this channel, weeks maybe, since we've last had a story about a poop crime, but I didn't expect a poop crime to come up in this video. Frankly, it's, I don't want to say that it's a humorous respite, because it does come from a place of actual struggle and trauma for this person, but I would say they have a good sense of humor about it, and I think we all needed this poop story. Oh, those Jesus faces, they probably looked a little traumatized after that one. Story 12. I still remember sitting in my bedroom at 2 a.m. trying to make myself start the 10-page research paper due the next day and just feeling like life was impossible. I remember looking around the room for something to hang myself with. This was all while I was on antidepressants. Somehow I managed to not kill myself, but instead stumble into my roommate's room, wake him up, and ask for help. I then lost control and started wailing and crying. I ended up failing one of my classes and almost failing another. After that, everything changed. I learned how to take care of my mental and emotional health and never got to that point again. Story 13. My daughter went into sudden respiratory arrest when she was 2 months old. Day 9 of ICU, I got a call that my older 3 kids were in a bad car accident with their dad, and I don't know if they are okay. Fortunately, they walked away with only mild concussions, and my baby is preparing herself for kindergarten and is healthy as can be. I'm so lucky and so blessed. Story 14. First, my dad died. Next, I learned my girlfriend cheated on me while I was at his funeral. Then I was on the verge of flunking out of college. Then my mom was falling so deep into depression, my sister thought she might commit self-termination. Only way I can explain how I got out of this depressing circle of hell was to man up. No one's going to help you. You need to find your own way out and put the pieces back together the best way you can. I disagree with this for the most part. And I know I've said that people can help, and that can be invaluable. There are people who love you and care about you who will help you out of stuff. But I get where this person is coming from, and sometimes you may find yourself in these tough places where you just can't recognize or see the person who's out there who is willing to help you. And sometimes you just got to keep going. You just got to keep pushing through until you find that light. And it might be another person, or you might be able to help yourself. But I will disagree saying that no one's going to help you. There are people out there. You just might not see them or realize it. But there are people out there that can help you. But sometimes, if you can push on your own, keep pushing until you find that person, please. Story 15. Drug addicts, shut in for most of my life, got into an argument with a literal neo-Nazi on 4chan about transgendered people, had a mental breakdown and realized I'm one of them. I'm a repressed trans woman. I'm still trying to come to terms with it. It was so bad that I wouldn't even leave my room because I honestly felt I was an eyesore that no one would possibly want to be around. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.